Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Desk Drop. I'm so pumped for this one. Honestly, I can't tell you how excited I am. I've got my good friend Dale from the Sales Rebellion on this week. Dale, how are you, mate?
I'm doing good, Alex. How are you, my friend?
I'm really, really well. I'm really well. As I said, I'm really excited about this. Where in the world are you?
So I'm actually currently in Savannah, Georgia, which is a quaint little town, a historic little town in the United States of America. But I reside back in Orlando, Florida, which some people like to say is home of Mickey Mouse. We call him the Rat. Those of us that are actual locals. But yeah, where I'm from is actually it's interesting because where I'm from is a tech hub. It's an aerospace hub. It's something that people don't really pay attention to. They think of it as a tourist trap, right? But there's so much culture and so much flourishing business inside of where I come out of that it's what cultured me and made me who I am today in regards to what I do for a living. So
Cool, man. Well, it sounds like you're in a good place. So, look, thanks for joining me. This week, we're going to talk about how to sell like a rebel or something along those lines, anyway. You're famous for starting the Sales Rebellion. Um, let's just start with some of the gold that you've got, really. Like, what are the most innovative ways that you're seeing, particularly right now, that people are using, particularly in sales, to break through to people?
yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind when you ask the question, and I think of just in general the breakthrough methodology for outreach is that what people typically tend to associate the 20th century or the 21st century with around outreach is the digital world, right? Oh, well, email is the best, or sending video, or something along those lines. But what we've, especially in the last year, we're coming up on our second year anniversary, right? But really, over the course of 2020, what we've seen that's working the most effectively for people is getting back to this concept of not allowing something like email to dictate your outcomes, but instead to try to create a personalized experience, and not just a personalized piece to copy or a personalized voicemail, but an actual experience that the prospect can feel. And so the way that a lot of sellers are utilizing that concept to deliver it is through direct mail. And the idea of somebody getting something, somebody opening something, somebody experiencing something, and in the process of that becoming more of a fan of the person that's sending it instead of just somebody that's interested in what they have to say in that moment, right? So that's really what we're seeing from an outreach perspective to be the most effective right now.
Nice, man. So you mentioned direct mail, which obviously is like very close to my heart.
Yeah.
Um, you've got some unbelievable use cases that you've told me about, just us speaking in passing. Can you sort of reflect on those a little bit more? Tell the listeners what kind of stuff you guys do.
Of course. So the things that we do at the Rebellion are based on, just to preface what I'm about to state, is based on my 13 years selling copy machines. So everything that we teach rebels to pull off is strictly based around the idea that I have not only done it, but I actually ran teams that individually pulled these things off themselves as well too. So it's not just a learn how Dale did it concept. It is a mindset teaching that also translates to a physical object or an experience, like I said earlier, for the prospect that differentiates what it is that they're used to on a daily basis. So this is about proactive selling, right? More than anything. So what I concocted that's our most popular outreach piece back in 2010 was the letter campaign, where I'd actually learned from the internet, of all places, through a realtor that was in Florida about a direct mail marketing piece that he was doing that he called the Crumpled Letter, and he didn't actually call it that, but I took it and was like, well, this is a crumpled letter. So, and I think that actually it dates back even further than this guy, and it was first used as a resume to get into university, and so a submission to get into university, but the idea was that I read about was that this guy had basically sent out mailers and he got a 2.5% return, and he was sending thousands, and he was saying to himself, what are people doing with this? Well, they're probably throwing it away. And so he was resurrecting them from the trash can and sending them back out. So what he was doing was he was putting a red marker that don't throw me away again, essentially, or Sharpie on these letters and sending them to people on the first send instead of doing it the way that he was. And he was getting a 20% response rate. from a 2%, right?
So hang on. So he was taking a letter, crumpling
Yes.
it up, writing on it in Sharpie in red, and then
Yeah.
sending a crumpled. How do you even send a crumpled letter?
So what he was doing was, like, how I learned it was that he was actually putting everything into the envelope and then crumpling the whole thing with the envelope, uncrumpling it, and then writing on the envelope, right? So that's how I learned that he was doing it. But I thought that's a cool gimmick, right? And gimmicks are helpful in sales, but not when they don't psychologically advance the deal, right? When they interrupt the typical pattern of the prospect, you're going to get a response, but typically it's a weak moment. And the response isn't usually exactly what you want the prospect to be feeling. It's just how they are translating the emotion that they think you're trying to help them to feel, right? So I really dissected it because the copy in the letter sucked. I read the letter and the copy sucked. And I was just like, that's crazy that you're going to have 20% response just over this whole concept of like crumbling up this whole thing so that it looked different and it made people laugh. So the whole concept here being that we wanted to create a designed experience. Well, I did back in 2010. So I actually made 4 letters. I made the crumpled as my first. I did a coffee stain, a pre-burnt, and then the letter traveled around the world. And I think that's probably my favorite one, honestly. And it's like the cadence is the last one you send, and because it nuances the other 3. And so let me tell you about the last one, the travel letter. So when someone gets the travel letter, it comes with stamps like all over the envelope, as if it's literally been around the world, right? When you open it, the back of the letter proceeds to have stamps all over it, and they're passport stamps. So it's like every country you can think of. And then when you flip it, your letterhead is on it, there's copy on it, and a big approved stamp that looks like it kind of like came through reception kind of concept, right? Or that like you got access to this country that you were going to. But again, it's all nuanced, all thematic, all experiential. And when you read it, it says, hey, you're probably wondering where this letter's been. Well, it's been all over the world looking for you, the busiest person to get a hold of. And and the decision maker typically gets a chuckle, but then it's not just relevant, bro. It's familiar, right? Because you're putting yourself in their shoes in that moment without the personalization piece, right? So to speak. Because it's easy to tell somebody you went to this university and you have this many kids because I saw it on Facebook, but it's also kind of creepy. And really what people want to feel is familiarity. And so if you can tell somebody like, dude, I know how busy you are and that nobody can get a hold of you, and that they see that and go, this person understands, this person gets me, and they can relate to it in that moment, right? So that's that familiar piece, right? So the idea of the whole cadence too, that I'll say for anybody listening, is that they say that it takes 12 touches. And at the time, I think in 2010, it was like 17 touches, right? To get somebody to respond to you. And so in sales, we built out all these elaborate sequences where we email and we stop by and we call and we leave 12 voicemails and like all this other stuff. I said to myself, well, how do we break that down into 4 touches and make the touches so radically authentic that the person that is viewing it had no choice but to say, I'm going to miss out if I don't talk to this individual and figure out whether or not they do have something that would be worth my time. So I found that having the 4 letters and then a digital version, which is one of my favorite ones, you can use video to send it. You can just send it straight through email, but there's a whole theme to it as well too that makes the buyer turn their head. That the success rate would come after a couple letters got sent. Sometimes you send 5, right? But most of the time it was 1 or 2, and furthermore, the idea of mailing these things was something that people aren't used to, right? So a salesperson doesn't send things in the mail like that. And if they do, it's like 30% discount today only, on a Sunday, right? So I also analyze like, what are people getting in the mail at the same time? So that not to like just to be different, but to differentiate the way that we were approaching and reaching people, and those things spawned into some crazy stuff, Alex. Like I had a donut box that I used to drop off at prospects' offices it was empty, and it had like the glazy grease stains where all the donuts were. And I would have in like a red Sharpie up at the top, it would say, sorry, I ate all these in the parking lot waiting for you to take my call. And I put my phone number, put my business card right in the middle. I had all kinds of different ways to do it. You can put a QR code in there to scan. In 2020, that's super relevant. Everything has a QR code right now because of COVID-19, right? And then it went even deeper where I would even send out cardboard cutouts of myself that were like literally life-size, like 6-foot cardboard cutouts of myself of me like fighting or killing or hunting copy machines in the woods. And there would be a big message on it. And they were massive. And I would have a note in it that would say, hey, I know you've been ignoring me and I haven't been able to get in front of you, but gotcha. And literally, like, that's all I would say in these letters. And then I would say, now you just need to call me and either set up time to meet or have your receptionist call me to come pick this thing up, because it's like $100. And I can't spare that expense on you. So, and when you're dealing with CEOs or you're dealing with particular ICPs inside of, if you know your ICP, if you know the foundation of what it is, who it is that you're selling to, and the typical personality that they have, not to stereotype them, but to understand the type of communication that's going to accommodate them best, then you'll win every time.
I mean, it's just genius. It's like, it's quite outlandish, right? Why do people not do this? Because not many people are doing this.
I think that the biggest reason why is because it takes commitment, and people are so afraid of commitment. People are afraid of committing to themselves, right? So maybe there's people listening right now that are thinking, no, I'm trying to get in shape and be healthier, but they just continually put that commitment off. Or they think, I should probably cut back on my drinking because it's not helping my lifestyle. It's not helping my relationships, but they continually put it off because the other side of that makes them feel good. It is extremely vulnerable to do these types of things, because if you do call somebody up and they say, yeah, that was stupid, it's going to hurt. I don't care how thick your skin is. I'm not a big fan of the whole bro culture of sales, of like, suck it up. And, because the problem is that we're all human. And at some point things sting to some extent. And so people have a hard time sending the stuff, and they'll make all kinds of excuses like, that's not it, Dale and Alex, it's because I just don't have the time. Well, you're not hitting quota. You're not hitting the goals that you want to achieve outside of quota. Even you're not buying the big house that you've been telling your wife for 10 years that you're going to buy with all your commissions. Right? Like you're in a stagnant place. You're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, which is the definition of insanity. And I was doing the same thing for 2 straight years. I said, I'm going to do this for like 25 years and then retire. That sucks. And I said, well, what is something that's going to step outside the box for me, create discomfort, which is what creates risk, which is what gains reward in all cases. And so I think really it just comes down to the person, being willing to commit, but also being willing to have somebody to hold them accountable to it as well, which is why we founded the Sales Rebellion, so that people couldn't just say, yeah, Dale's stuff is cool and I want to try it, but they could call and have somebody hold them accountable through coaching to be able to get it done in the first place. Right. So I think it's twofold from that perspective, because we have both been in the sales world forever, and we probably both have the same experience around that. Your boss doesn't just pay for sales training, right? They pay for industry knowledge, right? And they have some kind of program internally they take you through to help you with those things, but they don't pay for sales training, right? In most cases. So I think that there's a lacking on both sides of the coin with that, and that people just have to suck it up and they have to commit.
I love that, man, because that's what I had to do a couple of years back, right? I was frustrated by not having enough meetings, not having enough opportunities, not kind of doing those things that actually gave me an unfair advantage. And I just did the same as everyone else. And the moment I started doing the crazy stuff like you're talking about, all of a sudden I was like, hang on, I'm getting more deals. I'm closing more deals. This is unfair of me not to share this with the world. One of the reasons why I'm talking, so we can share this stuff. But I totally agree. I think it is exactly as you say. People just kind of, I always describe it as a little bit of fear and don't know how to take that next step. You spoke about the Sales Rebellion there a little bit. How did that actually start?
So realistically, it started back in 2010 when I took the things I knew, the things I'd been learning, and stepped outside of the box for myself and said, I want to create growth. I had taken, at that point, I had a Sandler sales coach. I'd taken Sandler for about a year. And although I enjoyed the teaching, there were things that just didn't speak to me from an altruistic standpoint in the way that I wanted to conduct myself and the legacy I wanted to leave. And so I stepped outside of that training even and started to develop this concept and idea around, because once you've been through sales training to any capacity, you can start to understand things different. Your business acumen changes, your perception of sales changes. It's even in the worst sales training course, because they help you to understand the basics in most cases, right? Like, what is communication like with another human from a sales perspective? And, even though I don't agree with the way that people portray that, it was good for me to sit back and say, oh, okay, I see here, we put things in boxes. And so I said to myself, it's time to shatter these things and start my own concept. So in 2018, I got an itch. In 2019, January, I quit the company that I was working for, Xerox, which is a global $2 billion organization. And I started the Rebellion because I had been training other people, watching their success, celebrating it on a local level in a very small circle, and thinking to myself, you can affect more change and you can help more lives outside of just like where you live and the territory / community that you serve. Right. So I stepped out in faith. I had been doing or posting content on LinkedIn for quite some time. And so I thought maybe I'll be able to gain some, traction with the company here, and started picking up the phone and dialing people and sending crumpled letters and donut boxes and, doing all the things that we teach people to do. And it caught on fire. We got just over half a dozen coaches now that are helping the community. We've got a great internal team. We're building apps. We're doing things that sales companies typically wouldn't be doing. And that was the approach, is that I sat back and said, let's create products. Let's redefine what sales looks like from an experiential standpoint, because there's already great things that sales has, and it doesn't need another guru or thought leader to come in and say like, oh, here's all these things you have to do during the sales cycle. Like, what it needs is it needs a community. It needs to build, sales needs real, true culture around community. It needs accountability. It needs a rebellion against all the things that are brainwashing people on top of it, for them to step out of the box and say, this is not who I am in the first place. This is not authentically me. This doesn't authentically serve. And this by any means does not help my reputation or build my legacy. And that's really the foundation of what we set back and analyzed and said, let's try this out. I also wrote a book in the process, which we're about to release either by the end of the year or the start of the year. I love to tease stuff, so that's even why I say it that way. Cause then people are like, well, which one is it?
That's so cool, because like when we started Reach Desk, I had that option as well, right? As one of the founders, it's like, I've been trained on value selling, right? Really rigid, like value selling process. I had to have my chart written out and everything. I was like, I hated that. Didn't work for me. I don't think it worked for my prospects. And when I interview people, I've now got 30 sales reps, right? They're like, so what process do we follow? I was like, you follow the Reach Desk process. But the challenge with that is it can break. And I think if you don't have a rigid format that you're used to, stuff can break, but it's all about tweaking it, in my experience. How have you guys managed that? So you're coaching people, but you're not following Sandler, right? You're not following value selling, spin. How do you actually keep it under control?
So the big piece of the puzzle is that we have an actual system that we defined, from roots to reason to the living pipeline to the sales wonder theory. We have a whole entire designated system for people. But the big push and why people are so successful that come through our system is that we actually meet them where they are. We learn about their existence. We learn about what drives them. We learn about their relationships. We learn about their hobbies. We learn about their family life. We learn about everything. And the process of that, because people will desire to be open with one another and to share things that could potentially change their outlook in a way that makes them more successful, and not just from a monetary standpoint, right? So we found a lot of success in being able to, again, meet people where they are. And then in those moments and in that place, we can pinpoint here where your actual problems are. And most of the time, it's just based on the simple philosophies and core principles of the Rebellion, which is putting people before products, putting community before commission checks, this idea of experiences instead of performing pitches, and this bigger concept of fellowship outside of negotiations. And I think that at that core level, when we hold ourselves accountable to our mission, to our vision, to our core values, that at all times we're affecting change inside of other people. But the system is helpful as well too, for people to learn their rebel roots and learn why it is that the pipeline should be treated as something that's living. And in the process of that, we teach them all the things that we're talking about. And the best part is, Alex, is that we don't just do direct mail concepts or experiential concepts through text messaging, videos, Zoom calls, inside of discovery sessions. We go one step further and have created a system of even touch points, throughout the course of having a relationship with somebody, that they don't just get these letters or these donut boxes or these resumes or these not so business cards or these cardboard cutouts, and then it never happens again. But we show up consistently throughout the process. And because of that, the prospect becomes not just a fan, but they have a feeling of being really cared for and of inclusivity within that organization, and not just as if they're a commission check, and part of the quota for that month, but that they actually have some skin in the game as well too with this. Because the other side of it is that most people that we're calling on as salespeople have a sales department. And if you are doing what they desire for their sales department, then you're changing the entire landscape of the way that they look at business, which betters them as an organization too.
And that's how you set the bar, and it's a high one. I think you've set, man. That's so cool. And like, I believe from what I've heard, you don't just sort of go in and just dictate this to prospects and other guys, right? I think you send in your students sometimes, don't you, to kind of advocate this? Is that right?
Yeah, matter of fact, I mean, that's what I'm doing today, is that I'm presenting to a group of people that are going to have their minds blown when the presenter stands up and doesn't, try to convince them about all the things that I've done, but instead that says, I'm learning just like y'all, but here's a case study, and they're here to talk to you and tell you what's been successful for them. And I think what's powerful about that too is that there are people on the outside looking in that will hear this or have seen this or will hear about this or any instance that we've done it and go, hold on, like my company's never done anything like that for me. Like these guys are coaches and they do this for their students, because it's publicity for the student just as much as it is for the people that we're going to serve as well. And that's what community building is all about. It's bigger than just like, how can we get ours? It's about, thinking, well, what kind of example are we setting? Number one. And number two, how are we giving opportunity back to the people that have provided for us, that have believed in us at the same time? And furthermore, nobody gives a flying squirrel crap about what I have to say in a room full of owners who have millions of dollars in the bank, right? What they really care about is how they can progress their organizations and fix leaky, holes in their ships. And typically that falls under the sales category. And so when they come to hear some sales guy talk and their patterns are completely interrupted and disrupted, which is what we teach and we preach, and we're practicing that in these moments, everything changes for every single person. And that's where our success lies, dude. It's not in sitting back and saying, oh, we helped this company to gain this many millions. It's about sitting back and saying, dude, this particular person's life has been changed. And don't take my word for it. Here's a video of them talking about it and allowing them to express the emotion, express what it is that has progressed for them, and to give someone else a piece of that as well too, that they can sit back and say, if this person can do it after all the stuff they just talked about, their wins, their losses, their addictions that they've overcome, because a lot of the people inside of sales, bro, are misfits, right? We're like, Scott Lee says it best. I think he says like the garbage bin of jobs, or something like that. Like everybody's, throwing the people away that go into sales because we don't have diplomas in most cases, or at least not in, anything that we're doing, right? We don't have this in our minds, this grandiose idea of what we want our future to hold. I'm going to be an attorney for 25 years, so there's a bigger picture perspective, and we want to speak to those people instead of trying to somehow herd them as cattle and say, oh, come into sales, you're going to make a lot of money. We want to meet people where they're at and say, hey, are you lost, broken, and weary? Because we got a community for you. And that's what most salespeople are struggling with.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. And look, I've watched a lot of your content and a lot of stuff from the Sales Rebellion. The thing that I always see is people very motivated, right? They're always like high energy. There's clearly a big love in that community. One of the things that we've got at the moment, we're talking during a time where a lot of the world is working remotely, is how can salespeople maintain the motivation to get up in their bedrooms, that dial, all that stuff? How do you guys seem to master that? Because you seem to have done a pretty good job.
Yeah. So what we do is the first thing that we do is a lot of people talk about, when they talk about this idea of self-development and you being your greatest asset, which, listen, I believe those things, don't hear me wrong, but they typically go directly to what motivates you, what drives you, what are you passionate about? Well, what we go to right away, and I would tell everybody that's listening right now, ask themselves what demotivates you, What isn't working? What sucks, right? Do you wake up every morning at 5 o'clock and you go and you do some stretching and some meditation and this and that, and then 8 o'clock rolls around and you're just not there, and you're just not who you were at some point? Well, listen, waking up at 5 a.m. every morning consistently isn't going to fix that if it's part of the problem. And so sitting back and really dissecting from a bigger picture perspective that maybe some of the stuff that people have told you to do or that you kind of feel comfortable doing is exactly what's wrong, right? So what we preach is getting uncomfortable. We say, hey, stop trying to be in control of something that you can't, and give it up, let it go. And don't do something stupid and like lose your house because you stopped paying your mortgage because you didn't feel like it, right? But take the little things in your system that you have built for yourself and your habits that you have built for yourself, and understand which ones are actually holding you back and they're not good in the first place. And so I think that sitting back and dissecting this concept of how do we get uncomfortable is one of the first things that creates that success, or reinvigorates that success, I should say, that we've driven toward. We got a group of people that are 2 weeks in right now, to just started with the rebellion. And I just saw a few of them in person, and they were telling me, I definitely see change. And sitting back and doing these things that we've talked about and reassessing things like my morning routine or my afternoon routine, or, because there's a lot of things inside of our routines that we're disconnected with. Well, like one I would say right now is that everyone listening, if I said, what do you do for lunch? The answer would, like 90% of the time, would be the same. You eat alone. You pack your lunch. You pick something up real quick from the bodega and scarf it and go about your day, right? And then at 3 o'clock, you want to nap because of that habit, because you're not using that time to reinvigorate yourself, to remotivate yourself, to connect with people, right? And the most sacred hour of the day is really what it is. That back in biblical times, fellowship and negotiation was conducted over breaking bread. That's how people did business, right? And we have lost touch with that concept entirely, just like in most cases with morning routines and our habits and rhythms. So people got to sit back and say, what am I doing right now that I've been doing forever that's not actually creating or providing any kind of incentive for me to get better, and get rid of it?
It's asking that really hard question. What makes you feel uncomfortable? What demotivates you, right? It's not the opposite, which is the standard thing that we do ask, right? What motivates you? Where do you want to get to? Focuses on too much on the positive. So get uncomfortable.
Yes.
I love that, man. So look, we don't have too much time left, but you've almost answered it, but I'd love to hear something new on top of that. I always like to ask, what would you tell salespeople to stop doing right now?
I would literally tell salespeople to stop. And this is kind of counterintuitive to what I do, right? But stop thinking that somehow content on LinkedIn is like free sales training for them. And the reason that I say that is because most people out there right now that are listening are like, yeah, I follow you, Dale, or I follow you, Alex, or I follow any of the other amazing salespeople that are on the platform, Josh Braun, Kevin Dorsey. I mean, I could go on, right, naming these folks, but this is what people need to understand, is that they're interpreting what we're writing, right? They're interpreting how you're putting something. They're interpreting how I'm putting something. Y'all need to take action. Right. Y'all need to and stop sitting back and saying like, well, I sent some of those crumpled letter things you talked about. Nothing happened. Like, listen, I just got a text last night from somebody that sent 9 of them and set 7 appointments. Right. So you must not understand it. Right. Your perception is ruling you. This interpretation that you have is causing more dissatisfaction, more distaste, because you sit back and you go, yeah, I really like what they say, but when I try to do the stuff or apply it to my walk, like it doesn't work. Well, no shit. It's not supposed to work that way, right? It's the idea is that you're supposed to be tapping into your own authenticity through our content, through our thought leadership, right? In the first place, if you want to even call it that, because my thought leadership is more like just tirades on LinkedIn about, what I do or don't like. and I think that more than anything, it's an outlet for guys like me and you to be able to express and that we want to help, right? But it doesn't mean that everything that we say is right or perfect. But it does mean that if you do like it, to stop treating it as if it's free sales training and start doing something about it, taking action and getting accountability inside of the things that you want to fix for yourself.
That's such great advice, man. I love following you on LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn feed is one of the most honest ones out there, which is what I love about it. I'm the same. I just say what I think and I don't think about it too much. And that seems to be a good way of getting traction. But look, I think we're up for time though, Dale. I could talk to you for hours, man. I've been a huge fan of what you're doing, a massive fan of the Sales Rebellion. For anyone listening, follow this guy on LinkedIn. You will learn so much, but you've got to take action, as Dale said, and actually do something with it. How do people get in touch with you? How do people sign up to the Sales Rebellion?
Yeah, so the best way to learn more about us, to learn more about what we do, just Google Dale Dupree and you'll find tons of interviews, tons of different resources with the Sales Rebellion. But heading to salesrebellion.com, going to the coaching section and booking time on my calendar or one of the squad members, which are down below me, to get in touch with somebody that can help you with your sales walk, or that can teach you a little bit more about our systems and our programs. We've got group coaching coming at the start of next year, which will be a huge differentiator for the sales world in general, to be able to pay low cost, low impact fees for reps that don't have thousands of dollars to spend, right? So keep on the lookout for those types of things. But what I would really tell people is just social media is a great way to connect with people and to be a part of the cultures that they're building. Not so much to go on and, what I should say is that social has turned into this thing where there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. But understand that the way that the Rebellion acts and the way that we want to lead is that we want you to come and be a part. We want you to go into the comments and meet people. We want you to watch a video of us introducing a student, and we want you to go and meet them as well too. It's not just about us. It's not just about the Rebellion. So go and seek out the places that we are, very active in: Bravado, LinkedIn, whatever it is, and come meet the community. Come meet other people that can help you with your sales walk that, you don't have to sign up for at all. And we're happy to facilitate those things, because maybe you're one of the people that's going to change the game for others, right now listening to this, and they don't know you yet. So come and get introduced.
Get involved with the Sales Rebellion. Man, it's been a real pleasure, Dale. Thank you so much for joining me, mate. Looking forward to seeing where the next step of the Sales Rebellion journey goes. It's been a real pleasure, man.
Thanks, Alex.
Cheers, dude.